Today on CJ Off-Road, we're going to make your Jeep's on-road performance a whole lot better. Factory ball joints in your JK can wear out after many years of abuse and a larger tire. So to fix the problem, today we're going to look at these Alloy USA ball joints fitting your 2007-2018 Jeep Wrangler. This Alloy USA ball joint kit includes both upper and lower heavy-duty ball joints to completely replace the ball joints on your 2007-18 Wrangler. They feature an SAE 4150 Chromoly steel construction with a low-profile Zerk fitting to allow it to be able to run with many aftermarket knuckles. Now the steel inserts are going to increase strength and improve your steering capabilities on your Wrangler. So let's get them installed on our 2008 Jeep. Now for the tool list on this install, it's going to be a little bit longer than usual, so I would recommend having a well-stocked mechanics tool set. You're going to need to have a ball joint press, some 12-point sockets, and then even an axle nut socket to make sure you can get the install done properly. So we're at the front of our JK, and as you can see, we've got it up on the lift and we have the wheels and tires removed. You can use a jack and jack stand to get it up. Just make sure it's safe when you put it up off the ground. We're going to start with our brake caliper bolts, get those removed, and then we'll show you how to get the ball joints installed. Now we're going to remove these 21mm caliper bolts. There's one up top and one on the bottom. We've let them sit in some PB Blaster to make it a little bit easier to get them off. Now we can remove the caliper, and we're going to hang it up on the frame rail. That way there's not too much tension on the brake lines. Pull the rotor off. Pull the axle nut off. We're going to use a 36mm socket. Now we're going to use a 12-point half-inch socket to get off these bolts that bolt on the hub assembly. Now we had to disconnect the ABS sensor. The location is behind your shock tower, so it's kind of hard to see, but you simply pull out the red tab and then separate these two, and you'll get the ABS sensor disconnected so you can pull your axle assembly out. We're going to disconnect the tie rod end, pull this little push pin here, and then we'll disconnect it with a 24mm socket. Ours is aftermarket, so it uses a 24. If you have a factory, it'll be a 21mm. Put the nut back on, that way when we disconnect the tie rod, it doesn't fall all the way. Now we can take the lower ball joint nut off. Now we can remove the upper ball joint nut. Make sure you hang on to this ABS line and brake line retaining bracket as you'll put it on with a new set of ball joints. The nuts removed from the bottom and the top ball joint, we can use a mini sledge and hit on the top to remove the steering knuckle. So now we've got our heavy duty ball joint press on our upper ball joint. We've got it with all the necessary attachments, and we're going to get started removing this upper ball joint. This is what your ball joint shouldn't look like. Now we're going to install our new Alloy USA ball joints, and I've got one pulled apart here. We've already got it set up to be pressed in. We're going to start with the lower and push it upwards. Make sure you remove this little dust cap here before you press it in. We're going to put a little grease right in here on the ball joint to make it go into the knuckle a little bit easier. Put the cover back on the bottom of the lower ball joint. We got the upper ball joint installed. Now we're going to put on that same cap that we put on the bottom. This one goes on the top, and then we're going to put a Zerk fitting right up top here. Now we're going to put the Zerk fitting right up top here. just get this snugged up. You don't really need to get it super tight. You're just going to use it to put grease into your new ball joints. So once you get the ball joint completely pressed in, you can put the included clip underneath here. All right, so we're just about ready to put our old knuckle back on. We actually went and sandblasted a little bit and cleaned it up because it was really rusty. So let's get it back on here now. Now that we have it on, we're going to use the larger nut and washer on the bottom, and then the top just gets a smaller nut. Then we can go back and tighten these up and put the safety cotter pins in both of them. Once you get them both on, you can tighten up the castle nuts, and we'll put the cotter pins inside once they're completely tightened up. We're going to put the cotter pins onto our castle nuts. You're going to use the larger cotter pin on the bottom nut and the smaller one up top. Now we can reinstall the axle shaft. Make sure the ABS sensor is facing the front of the Jeep. That's how you know the axle shaft is properly aligned. We're going to put a little anti-seize on the hub bolts. That way they're easier to get out if we ever have to access the hub again. Go back and make sure you tighten up all the hub bolts evenly. Now you can reinstall the axle nut. We have some anti-seize already applied. Now reinstall the rotor. Now you can reinstall the caliper back onto the rotor. I'm just using my hand to get them tight, and then we'll go ahead and tighten them up with the torque wrench later. Everything's tightened down, including the caliper, the rotor, and the axle nut. We can reinstall the tie rod up into the steering knuckle. We'll come back and tighten this down. This is a 24 mil. If you have a factory tie rod, it's a 21. We're going to reinstall the ABS line. That way there's no lights on the dash. Complete all the same steps on the other side, and your installation is complete. We just finished up the install of the Alloy USA ball joints on our JK, and it looks really great, and it's going to make our Jeep ride 100 times better than it did before. The install time was a little bit long. You're going to give yourself a whole day, if not a long weekend, to do this. We had a lift, but you can use a jack and jack stance. Now you can find these Alloy USA ball joints as well as many other great parts for your JK right here at cjponyparts.com.